It's my pleasure to warm things up tonight in cold Akron. And I think I'm going to start with the title poem in the book called Department of Elegy. And in case you didn't get to see the cover, this is what it looks like. So it sort of has a bit of a dialogue with the Appetite for Destruction album art, like sort of inadvertently. So yeah, anyway, this is Department of Elegy. The elegies began writing themselves. Naturally, this made us uncomfortable, as cruising a breakfast bar in pajamas feels both warranted and inappropriate. I was invited to speak on public radio, but every word had to be some sort of farewell, and I wasn't sentimental. No, this job was not about infrastructure as much as exoskeleton. Classrooms full of students groaned as I walked past. Dogs at animal control shushed howls. Trees just fell. Embracing their fate so readily, I was tempted to evoke all the elegies of my predecessors. What river is not reinvented every morning? Asked the outgoing Minister of Elegy. But that was in a prior administration. So I'm going to try to not always read the same poems. That's one of the things that happens when you have a new book out. You're like, oh my gosh, which are like my go-to warm up the crowd poems? Which are the ones I, like lean on randomly? So I'm going to try to read one that I haven't really read before, and I hope this goes okay. So this one is called More Beautiful Than God, which was actually the working title of this manuscript for a minute, but I'm glad I came up with Department of Elegy. So anyway, and this has like long couplets in it. You'll just need to get a copy of the book to see it. I'm sorry, I can't do it justice. So this is called More Beautiful Than God. And in this book, I have a series of friends that hang out and have adventures. So one of the friends here is Carly. It was sad. We were all waiting for Carly's relationship to fall apart. When she posted another photo of roses from her husband, we rolled eyes so hard, our skulls vibrated a little. I recalled my academic paper on how some people might seem like heroes in the past, but are really incompatible with present life. What with open container laws, tagged photos on social media, and unwashed hair as meditation practice, not symptom of vagrancy. I presented that paper in my friend's business suit, which I had to replace after setting a lit camel light on the lapel. In case you were wondering, it was burgundy wool, almost sangria, which I consumed in ungodly quantities while rehashing highlights of the Q&A, which was mostly former professors arguing symbols. Carly says her present relationship is devoid of all arguments. Lambs brushing up against each other in the pasture, weekly hot pedicures and wet yoga, the husband telling her she's more beautiful than God. And hopefully neither of them has a background in Baroque painting where God resembles a heap of tube socks against a sharp nimbus. And please don't think for a moment this is schadenfreude, revenge sparked by our own eventual personages, that we ever pretend we're in witness protection and the agents assigned us an arbitrary identity of dull 40-something academic or extremely stable urban mother. In the latest photo montage, Carly and her husband recreate proposal shoot poses, and I recall holding her jaw open once when racked by strychnine. We had to tie her to a chair, but she dragged the chair. The night that skinhead cornered her at the bodega and I had to beg cops to even slow down. Or the time she kept stomping on her hem. And maybe I am just a bitter non-believer, cynical, like that day she came home with an unidentifiable mouse and we told her just to set it outdoors, to let the autumn weather take its course. Thank you. So I write a lot about animals and I don't do this on purpose, but today I did get a really great picture of a hawk sitting outside my office. It's very cold here in Akron. And sometimes that means that we get great sunrises, and there's this hawk. I think I put it on Instagram and on Facebook. It was that good. But this is kind of an homage to that because this is a poem that has a hawk in it. And this is called Ghost Writer. The hawk was clearly in distress. I knew this because I was too. Somehow traffic seemed to increase or get faster, mostly pickups. To this day, I still worry I haven't locked my car, shut the burner. Harbored a dream of ghostwriting novels about animals, but not that hawk and not that day. My hair was dirty and in a catastrophic updo. I was wearing a sweater from 1996 and it was not 1996 or even close. How I envied people who did their lives correctly, not like a sitcom with 1,000 loose threads, fallings down, trains dramatically entered and departed, actual guns, furious scrubbing of upholstered furniture. I'd only had a few memorable junctures that were clearly critical. I thought of this as I wrapped my hands in a sack left under a park bench. Conventional education offers zero insights. Perhaps it would feel cleaner to live up in the trees. I'll confess that sometimes when I'm walking around, I do think, and I see the birds up there, I'm like, I kind of want to go there, like be up there. That's sort of where I belong. All right, so I'm going to read a couple more for you here. All right, this one is called Gray Horse. I wanted to be out in the field, and then I was overwhelmed by the size of the field. So I wished to be smaller, like the width of a grasshopper. Yet even then, I would be too large for some crevices, like the space between floorboards where the stealth spiders tucked their legs when anyone padded by in socks. And though the room was so dim, I wanted no candle or lantern after lightning hit the window in my grandfather's study, which had chestnut cork on all the walls. And we only had one guitar, which I took into the bathroom, so embarrassed at what I was attempting to play. After coal miner's daughter lit me like a hammock left out in a hailstorm. And I would suddenly now remember riding a gray horse across the field as a child in new corduroys, while the birds harvested favorite invisibles, and the horizon slipped out of its off-shoulder blouse and vanished. So some of these poems are just, thank you so much for the love. Some of these poems are little, like the whole premise behind this book. I told myself after writing Partial Genius, which is all these big prose poems, right? I was like, I'm gonna write these small poems. And they didn't necessarily all end up being small. Some of them just had long lines and were shorter, but they weren't that much smaller. So here's one of those dinky ones that I've got here. This is called A Radical Notion, and it's toward the end of the book. Graffiti on the bridge read, "You have no future in administration." My heart opened like a Scantron sheet with every bubble filled in. Society had run out of things to weaponize, even the ugly plums. I told myself not to think, but it was like spitting into a high creek. My worries, like hot missilettes, they shoved into our church arms. I preferred to take my arms into the woods for a thorough scaring. Knew it was wrong, but still wanted to eat a cactus heart someday. Savannah took a cactus out of her blouse and then she disappeared. Nobody wanted to purchase our grass bracelets, not even out of pity. The administration retracted the definition of renewable energy. All right, so the next one I'm going to read is actually facing that one. So they're kind of like neighbors. So in this book, I talk a lot about heaven, like not that I know, I'm not an authority on the subject, but I'm kind of pairing heaven with different things. And I also have a variety of like different forms, like different kinds of like book poems. So this is a heaven poem. And I think, I'm not sure if she's here, but if she is, thanks to Susan Grimm for fixing the first line in this. and making it so much better. Sometimes you have a friend who just gives you that one little tweak. You're like, yes. And you'll know why pretty soon. Okay. This is called Heaven and Its Dead Lake. You thought that happiness was a meat. I had more than given up. The boundaries were like phantom buoys that turn out to be fast food cups in the wake. We pondered how many bodies were submerged in stages of sleep or death, but the bats reminded us that it's either the grimy bathtub of your apartment or the grimy bathtub of afterlife, and only one has scented soap. My body felt like a tiresome awning, constructed in some past decade where priorities differed. Women wore pantyhose and dialed phones with the eraser end of a pencil. My building had Baroque flourishes that conflicted with most modern sensibilities, including fresh. I would sip a glass of lake water, gazing out the window at the lake. My free agency felt like an invisible rush left behind by a wave. I just want to read two more. I think I'll read another lake poem. Thank you for the class. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to read some poems that I don't read all the time. And I'm realizing also that I have many poems with long sentences in them. So I'm just kind of like, Mary, why'd you do that to yourself? It's a mouthful. All right, this is my penultimate poem of the evening, and it's called Heaven and Its Choppy Water. I felt better on a lake, as if otherwise something was missing. Like the time we baked with oil instead of water, or tried to trim the lawn with kitchen scissors. We owned 2 lamps and had to carry them from room to room like torches. We smelled of borax or spider webs. Our house mostly attic space with curtains for doors. And we'd play a game with friends. Who could sprawl across the bed, then touch all 4 walls at once? One time a squirrel sat on the stove and we just watched. One day rain coasted under the locked door. I was either waiting to arrive or to leave. All night, 2 red beads on a string slapped their wasp concert against the screen. All right, so this is my last one, and I keep doing this. Like, I guess you have these tendencies, but I keep ending with the last poem in the book. And when I was playing with this, you know, like it's just like making a mixtape. It's like, how do you end your mix, right? Like the way that you end it says so much about how you send your listener into the world. So I had tweaked this at the last minute to put like a more happy, joyful, silly poem with a nacho fire at the end. So I'll read this one. Thank you so much for listening. This has been just such a great reading, and I can't wait to stop talking so I can listen to Ananda. This is called God's Plan. Occasionally, I pine for a mild disaster, such as a really loud cough of thunder, followed by wind that tears the scarves off the lawn, throws patio chairs around, and maybe a contaminated lake barfs up some sensitive documents or a dead hog. It's hard not to scream in church. Library map rooms aren't much better. Or the ice rink where the music remains in 1982, nacho machine on the brink of a calamitous fire, but somehow still producing its cheeses, which I will never be able to eat, thanks to my ancestors who survived on boiled stones and shags of grasses and sheep's dreams. Real excitement is a hidden bee in a box of raspberries, putting the car in a wrong gear, then gunning it. As a child, I had a placemat emblazoned with photos of 9 different types of scat. Sometimes I recall it as I recline in the dentist's chair, pinned down by the lead vestments of joy. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Thank you.